Good evening and welcome back to the Pinellas County Board of County Commissioners meeting for April the 23rd. Tonight we have the public hearing aspect of our meetings, and we will start with agenda item 38.
Item 38 is release of public road right-of-way by general lease and reservation of a drainage, utility, and sidewalk easement over the property. And the administrator has an announcement to make regarding that.
On this item, the item was not properly noticed, and therefore we're asking that this be deferred to a future Board of Commissioners meeting.
Okay. A motion to that.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Eggers, and I think a second I heard from this direction. Was it Commissioner Welch?
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Sorry. Joined. You can record me as a yes. Yes, thank you. It's unanimous then to defer this. Item 39.
Item 39 is a legislative petition to vacate submitted by Pinellas Affordable Living Incorporated for that certain 16-foot alley lying between lots 3 through 28, Block B, Central Park subdivision. The public hearing was properly advertised. Affidavit of publication has been received for filing. Letters of no objection have been received from the appropriate parties. All interested parties have been notified as to the date of the public hearing. No correspondence has been received. The matter is properly before the board to be heard.
Okay. This is a public hearing. I don't have any cards. Is there anyone who wishes to speak on this agenda item? Close the public hearing.
Move approval.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Gerard, second by Commissioner Welch. Thank you. Okay. Here we go. It's in unanimous. Thank you very much. We'll move on to agenda item 40.
Item 40 is a quasi-judicial petition. All those wishing to testify on that item, please stand and take the oath. You swear to tell the truth in the testimony you're about to give, signify by saying I do. I do. Thank you. This is a quasi-judicial petition to vacate submitted by Pulte Home Company for portions of a private drainage, utility, and landscape easement lying in lots 20 through 25, Enclave at Palm Harbor. The public hearing was properly advertised. Affidavit of publication has been received for filing. Letters of no objection have been received from the appropriate parties. All interested parties have been notified as to the date of the public hearing. No correspondence has been received. The matter is properly before the board to be heard.
I also don't have any cards for anyone to speak on this item. Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to speak? Okay, we'll close the public hearing.
Move approval.
Second. Motion by Commissioner Gerard, second by Commissioner Long. Okay, it's unanimous. Thank you. Thanks. And this is now agenda item 41. And we do have go ahead. I'm sorry.
Item 41 is a quasi-judicial hearing. All those wishing to give testimony, please stand and take the oath. You swear to tell the truth in the testimony you're about to give, signify by saying I do. Thank you. This is case number Z060319, application of J. Long Realty Group, LLC, and KSK Homes Incorporated for a zoning change from RR, rural residential, to R1, single-family residential. The public hearing was properly advertised. Affidavit of publication has been received for filing. No correspondence has been received. The matter is properly before the board to be heard.
Very good. The only card I have is from Matt Newton, and he is in support of the project. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak on this agenda item? Then we'll close the public hearing.
Move approval.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Gerard, second by Commissioner Welch, for approval of case Z 060319. And that's unanimous. We'll move on to the final item on our agenda, which is item 42.
This is case number Z050319. Those wishing to give testimony in that item, please stand to take the oath. You swear to tell the truth in the testimony you're about to give, signify by saying I do. I do. Thank you. This is an application of Joyce M. Couture for a zoning change from R3 Single Family Residential to RMCO Multifamily Residential Conditional Overlay and PC Preservation Conservation, with the conditional overlay limiting the use to single-family attached dwellings and their customary accessory uses. The public hearing was properly advertised. Affidavit of publication has been received for filing. 34 letters and 2 petitions with 91 total signatures in opposition to the application have been received. The matter is properly before the board to be heard.
Okay, we have some cards in favor, some cards against, so I'll ask for a staff presentation first.
Good evening, Michael Schoderbach, Principal Planner, Planning Department. This case is, we have it up on the screen, PowerPoint. Subject property is approximately 5.4 acres in size. The address is 600 Pennsylvania Avenue. It's located in the Ozona community. It's a zoning atlas amendment from R3, which allows detached single-family homes, and the request is to multifamily residential with a conditional overlay, which would limit that use to single-family attached homes, commonly known as townhouses, on 5.1 acres, and to identify 3 areas of wetland on the property that is 0.32 acres as preservation conservation. The future land use on the property is residential low, which allows 5 units an acre. There's no change to that, and also preservation on the wetland areas. The proposed use is a development that's up to 26 single-family attached townhouses. You see the property here outlined in red. Give you a general idea of where it is. Pennsylvania Avenue is on the south side of the property. Pinellas Trail runs here off to the east. All the way on the east side of the map is alternate 19, and very far top right corner is Florida Avenue, alternate 19, so southwest of downtown Palm Harbor. Property currently has 2 single-family houses on it. It's adjacent to a 20-unit townhouse community on the west. To the north is a large lot, single-family house. Off to the east, there's a few cul-de-sacs with single-family houses. And then as we go further down along Ohio Avenue, there's a mixture of single-family houses and duplexes. And further down across the street is a church, and southwest of the property is Ozona Elementary School. This is the land use in the area. You can see the from and the to. There's no change. It's RL. It allows 5 units an acre. The dark yellow color is all RL. The lighter yellow color is RU, which allows 7.5 units an acre. And then the blue to the south, and then just adjacent is institutional, which reflects the church and the school, but also could be developed up to 12.5 units an acre. The dark green is the current preservation. You can see the 3 areas on the property. They're not that big. These were identified by a wetland survey. kind of here in the middle. There's a small area in the upper left, and then right along the frontage of Pennsylvania Avenue is a wetland area. The dashed outline is indicating this is in the Ozona Community Overlay Area. This is the zoning on the property. Current zoning is R3. The request is RM, which is the pink color, what the townhomes are adjacent to the west, and then the properties adjacent on the east. This area, that's the little cul-de-sac, all has RM. Also adjacent is other low-density residential, R1, R4, which allows single-family duplexes and triplexes, and same thing off to the south and west. So a mix of different types of residential in the area. Some pictures of the site. This is the entrance to the property. They have a shared access with the Ryan's Woods Townhome community, and they own half of the access. Ryan's Wood owns the others. They have an access agreement right now to use that. And then the other picture is looking directly north. The county has a large drainage way through there, and then there's also the area of preservation. Directly across the street is the church, and then a little off to the southwest is part of the elementary school. As we swing around to the west side of the property, you can see an example of the Ryan's Woods townhomes. And then the other picture is that shared access driveway looking south towards Pennsylvania Avenue. So we swing around to the east side of the site. This is Ohio Avenue, looking west, right behind the dead end. That's where the property is. Over on the left side of that picture, there's some duplex properties. On the right side is single-family homes. And then we swing around looking east along Ohio Avenue. Same thing. Again, there's no change in allowable density on this property. It's not changing. It's 5 units an acre. There's potential for 26 units to be developed. Right now, under the R3 is single-family detached homes. There's the potential to do 26 units of that. They're requesting a change to allow for townhomes up to that maximum 26 units. We believe the residential multifamily allows for lot size flexibility, in a development to be able to place, because these are smaller lots that you're allowed with townhome developments. Again, the conditional overlay that would limit it to townhouses, taking out the potential for apartments or condo buildings. And we feel that this meets the Ozona Community Overlay District Comprehensive Plan standards. Particularly, they talk about it's a mixture of low-density uses, residential. We find that this is consistent with that. It's appropriate with the RMCO, it's appropriate to the upland areas, that designating the wetland areas as preservation conservation. We feel that's appropriate. There's adequate capacities available for infrastructure impacts. It's compatible with the surrounding uses, and it's consistent with the comp plan. And staff recommends approval, and it was recommended approval at the LPA. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Mr. Eggers?
Yeah, thank you for the presentation. So just several thoughts, questions, I guess. Site plan was introduced. They introduced a site plan, I think, that showed how they planned to lay it out.
It's a concept, yeah, they did.
Concept. The idea was that they couldn't, with the zoning change, they couldn't build any more residences than would be otherwise allowed. That's what the overlay calls for.
The overlay is limiting the use to townhouses. The residential multifamily allows single-family detached, attached, duplexes, triplexes, apartment buildings. So they're taking
no
all
more-
those uses out and just limiting it to townhouses.
But the number of units they're allowed to be built, I thought, was limited to the number that would be allowed and under the current zoning.
It's under the land use, the current land use of residential low allows 5 units an acre, and there's no change, so that's where the 26 units.
So because they showed a plan for that site plan for townhomes, detached, are we sure that that's the number of homes that they actually could build for single-family homes, given, or does
There
it?
hasn't been a plan presented for single-family detached homes.
Okay,
Based on the lot size of R3, 6,000 square feet in size, there's the potential that it could fit
But there's
with the wetlands on the property, but I have not seen a site plan.
okay,
for
so there's
that,
no definitive thing
Correct.
that says that we're allowing them 26 in the new situation because they're allowed up to 26 under the current zoning. But we don't know that they could actually put 26 on.
Yeah, I haven't seen a plan on it, though.
Okay.
But yeah, they could potentially do it if somebody can make it work.
Also, is there any restrictions, do we have any restrictions in the development, given that the property is so close to the intercoastal? Is there any kind of high hazard, velocity zone kind of restrictions on density?
It's in the coastal high hazard, which limits density to 5 units an acre, so they could not ask for an increase in density.
Okay, but so that is clearly within what is allowed under the high. Also, the last question I had for now is the local flooding. I mean, I drove out there just to kind of get a feel for the area, just so I could understand what it is, some of the concerns that we've been hearing about. But I've also been out there following a couple days worth of storms, and being that it's down at almost at a turning point, and I think it's B Pond. I always get these wrong. B Pond, or one of the creeks that comes down. Mm-hmm. There is a horrible, horrible flooding that goes on in that area. That I constantly get concerned. I know we don't do site plans here, but we'll take care of the water on the new development on site. So, given the nature of the flood-prone area that's in, do we have higher requirements for on-site flood water retention
Well, there's-
during the development?
2 things is they would have to build to whatever the flood zone or the elevation is. Whatever the flood zone is out there, they would have to build the first living floor above that. Whether, I'm not sure what that flood zone is, whether they could bring in fill on the property or they would have to put it on stilts. I'm not sure on that. And also during the site plan, they would have to meet the stormwater manual requirements, which they have to contain everything on site. They can't just discharge any of that
Understand.
right in there. So
But there's
they-
no additional requirements, given the nature of the flooding problems that we have in that area
Yes,
already?
if it's, in my understanding from being involved at pre-apps, is if you're in a floodplain, if you want to add like a cup of dirt in it, you have to take a cup out. So you have to compensate when you're in a floodplain. You have to do that extra compensation in there.
Yeah.
So it doesn't push water onto your neighboring properties.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's certainly something to being close to the water that causes concerns. There's, the high hazard nature causes concerns, but the problems that we have at that intersection, at the turn of the creek, is a huge problem. So just a concern as it relates to the site plan. And I wouldn't be talking so much about site plan had they not introduced the site plan in their package. So I'll be back with some more questions in a little bit. Thank you.
Mr. Justice?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I think Commissioner Eggers hit on really the main question I always have with these things is, what's the most intense development that could happen now if we don't do anything at all tonight? And so currently it would be zoned for 25 homes, 26 homes, if they could find something to alleviate the wetland concerns that are there.
Correct. If they could make a site plan work with the way the wetlands are on the property, the configuration, the minimum lot size requirements, meeting stormwater, meeting roadway, utilities, if they could make that work, they could fit 26 houses on there. But I have not seen a site plan for that.
And then the property that's on the very north end, is that their access point, is that same shared road? Is that the only access to that large house on the very north that's just outside the property? See, we have that one red, the red line kind of extends.
That red line, that's part of their property. The applicant can explain a little bit more, but I believe they owned this piece here, sold it off to the neighbor who owns that, but they retained this small portion here for potential water access. But there are wetlands in the area, so I don't know if they could get out there.
Okay, thank you.
Any other further questions? Okay.
Thank you.
Is someone here representing the applicant?
Yes.
Are you Jessica
Yes.
Koch? Okay. And of course, you have 20 minutes altogether.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. My name is Jessica Flammer-Cook. I represent the applicant Joyce Couture. She is present this evening in the lovely striped shirt over there, so you know who she is. And she's sitting there with 3 of her children. I've actually known the Coutures my whole life. They bought this property in 1957, making them one of our original Ozona community members. They lived, the generation before that lived there already. Dr. Couture, who passed away in November of 2017, was a physician in the area for 45 years. They raised all 7 of their children on this property, and they built just the 2 single-family homes in all of the years that they have lived there. So it was one of Walter's, Dr. Couture's wishes, that when he passed away, that they would repurpose the property into a community so that it can be enjoyed by more families going forward. And that is kind of where this project found its genesis. I don't want to repeat too much of what Mr. Schoderbach already told you, but hopefully I can add to it, particularly to address Mr. Justice's question. The little line that goes north is an easement. So that property used to be squared off at the top there. They sold it to a family called the Wrights that lives to the north, so they could extend their driveway into that property, and the Coutures retained that easement. So they actually have separate road access to the Wrights property. They do not use Ryan's Woods Lane to get to their property. The road stops well south of that. So that's what that little offshoot is just an easement. We are proposing this move to RM with a single family attached, and in the meetings that we had with the county, the planning department, one of the things that we finally came out with was this conditional overlay, and really the purpose behind that was to just let you know and let the community know that we are gonna do what we say we're gonna do with this property. We're not looking to rezone it and put up triplexes or condos. We want to build these townhouse structures with, the 2 driveways. That is what we wanna do, so we agreed to the conditional overlay, just kind of as an extra, I suppose, added comfort, as much as we can say that to the community, that we do intend to do what we're saying here. These are the properties that are immediately to the east and west. The duplexes, which are on the left side, they're on Ohio Avenue. And then that is Ryan's Woods on the right side of the picture. In the duplex photograph, the wooded area on the far right of the picture is the property boundary. So that is one side of the property. As he said, the requested zoning does not include a density increase. We haven't completed the 26 single-family unit site plan either. Single-family home site plan, because of our intention has always been to do this townhome concept. We understood that we could build the same number of homes with just this lot flexibility. And I think one of the benefits that provides in using these smaller lots in a townhome scenario is that it allows for more green space on the property to remain while achieving the same density on the property. The lots can be as small as 1,400 square feet, whereas under that R3 zoning, you're at 6,000 square feet, I believe. And so this allows for a lot more flexibility on a property that is heavily wooded as it currently stands. And we also are asking for that preservation conservation designation, and I have some maps so you can see where those are. This property is in the community of Ozona overlay as part of the comprehensive plan. We, as Mr. Schoderbach shared with you, we also believe, of course, that this fits with the overall development in Ozona. As to illustrate that, the picture there is immediately to the south of Ozona Elementary, right kind of across from the property, is the Ozona Village development that has just been completed that is in a concept very similar to what we are proposing. And it's, if you have an arm like mine, basically a stone's throw from where the property is. And we're not requesting a density change because the family has lived here for 60 years. They understand the Ozona community, the character of the Ozona community, and they would not want to do anything, certainly to diminish that or destroy it in any way. And so out of respect for that in the property, they've had this conditional overlay and just plan to try to put up the nicest thing they can in keeping with their father's vision. One of the main, we've heard two main things through this process, and I know you've read the letters, and one of them is impact on infrastructure. We addressed this a little bit at the LPA hearing, and so I thought I'd talk to you a bit about it. Obviously, when the zoning was decided, and taking into account what the infrastructure around it can handle, that's where the density comes from. So we're not requesting any additional density on the property. We're not actually changing what the anticipated impact on the infrastructure was from the beginning of this zoning. Now, I understand that going from 2 single-family homes to 26 homes is going to impact infrastructure on a very practical level. However, on more of a legal level, or what you're considering here, that is what the zoning has always contemplated at this density, and that's what's allowed on the property. One thing I thought might help is trying to figure out, because this road particularly, these local roads haven't been studied, is looking at the Institute of Transportation Engineers. They put out a study, they're on their 9th edition now, I believe, of talking about what every type of structure produces trips to and from. Is actually kind of a fascinating thing to go through. It's everything from hospitals down to single-family homes and kind of how that impacts cities and towns. So townhomes, they have found, and this has been consistent across their reports, produce about 3.7 less trips per day than a single-family home. Reading the factors that went into the study, it has a lot to do with the number of people expected to live in a single-family home and the number of cars in a single-family home versus a townhome. And that's, I believe, most of where those kind of statistics come from. But this is a nationwide study. This isn't an Ozona study, but this is an average across the country. The other concern is the environmental concerns. Obviously, as Commissioner Eggers pointed out, we're not in the site plan process, but we have thought about it. This property is very important to this family. We had a jurisdictional survey with the wetlands done already, and as part of that, we're proposing that 3 major areas on the property be reg designated preservation conservation, largely due to the growth of black mangroves in the following 3 areas. So the southern end of the property, that's Pennsylvania right there at the bottom of your picture, is a large wetland area. You saw it on the photos Mr. Schroederbach showed you from the road there, that county drainage area, and then there's a large mangrove growth there. So we would ask that area be designated preservation and conservation. It's also the reason that you cannot access this property from Pennsylvania. You have to access it from one of its sides. Then Ohio Avenue is what is not unfortunately pictured here, but is immediately to the south of where this ditch occurs. This was dug in the 60s by the county as a drainage ditch that goes out to the Sutherland Bayou there to the west. There is a pipe that you can see right above the arrow there that is a drainage pipe that runs underneath the ground. It goes out to the Sutherland Bayou. This has developed over time into a wetland area. It also has mangroves growing in it. And so as part of the project, we would like to have that redesignated. And of course have already begun plans for how to deal with protecting that pipe and making sure that nothing in the construction interferes with the ability of this area to drain, because it's draining stormwater from Ohio Avenue as part of its function. And then in the far northwest corner, you have a small area of wetlands up there as well. That is the final preservation area. As Mr. Schroederbach told you, this is currently, there are 2 single-family homes, and you can see how you get on and off the property there as an exit on Ryan's Woods Lane. They actually own half the road. They share that road. They have a mutual easement or reciprocal easement with Ryan's Woods. So the proposal, just for your information at this point, is to have an entrance and exit on Ohio and an exit only onto Ryan's Woods to give the residents multiple options on how to get in and out and try to divide some of the traffic up. Depending on the way the person wants to go leaving also, it kind of makes sense. This is where the proposed entrance on Ohio would be. And the road currently stops there. You can see that's the entrance to the property. That entire wooded area is all the property line. And then that proposed exit would be a little bit further south and a little closer to, Pennsylvania than the current driveway is. This is actually what Ryan's Woods looks like as of a month ago, and the current driveway. And as Commissioner Egger said, we did submit a preliminary site plan. We were just trying to work with the county as much as possible to make sure that we had a conceivable site plan given our wetland areas. And I mean, it's a concern for them right up front. They wanted to make sure that this was a feasible project that respected the property and the natural wildlife and wetlands on the property as much as possible. This is a 24 home concept that includes that community area you can see there, and trying to make the beginnings of working out where the different drainage facilities would be, and of course where those wetlands play into the project. The only wetland not pictured would be on the far north corner here, but there's no proposed development over there. So, and I'm sorry, I could go back to you.
Okay.
Yes, thank you.
Any questions for Commissioner Justice?
So I assume that the 2 current single-family homes will be demolished as far as the site plan?
Yes, sir.
Oh. No, she's good. Am I stopping?
And we've already begun to work with Swift Mud on the issues of water movement on the property and everything like that. So that process is currently in progress.
Question. I wanted to get back to the idea again. I'm used to dealing with site plans from my previous things. We don't do that here. I keep being reminded by everybody that we don't do that, but you introduced the site plan, so I just have a question. It seems to me that if you designed homes on there, that the number 26 you would not reach 26, even though the zoning allows for it. The spirit behind the overlay is that you don't change what would have been not necessarily allowed to be built, but what could be built. So that if you're doing 26 now, but you could only put 18 on their homes, to me, that's a significant change in the number of the folks that are there. It goes to the number of total trips and all of that. So to me, it's just a concern that we're, again, dealing with the overlay, to just say, because it's zoned so, that you could do that, gives me pause as far as changing it for that reason. So just, could you maybe comment to that a little bit?
Yes, sir, and I definitely understand, and the math works in my head as well when looking at the plan, and particularly because of the location of some of those wetland areas, and what kind of challenges that would pose in fitting as many homes as we need, because of the access to the rear, what I consider the rear of the property, the north of the property. However, when we were discussing the conditional overlay with the planning department, really what our intention was, and because we were telling them, obviously, and giving them this and saying, we are gonna go and ask for this zoning change, and we are gonna build these just townhomes. And Mr. Schoderbach pointed out that you can build other things, and so just going to the LPA and going to the county commissioners and telling them that you're going to build those, unfortunately doesn't hold much water, because you could go do something else. And so actually our intention in adding the overlay was just to, I guess, make our intentions as clear as possible, and perhaps box ourselves in a little bit into the type of development. So that was actually more our goal in adding the conditional overlay, was just trying to, I mean, I suppose show that we're gonna be true to our word, and not necessarily the spirit wasn't in keeping in with what the current density is, because we were told that would be the same anyway. So it was more just to show that this is all we plan to do on the property. I hope that helps.
Okay, I understand what you're saying. I think it goes to the spirit of what what is trying to be done in the area. So, just again a little bit of a concern with that. I think that's it for now.
Commissioner Welch.
Great presentation. Just curious, did you have any meetings with the community, with the neighborhoods?
Yes, sir. I grew up in Palm Harbor, went to Palm Harbor High, so I'm very familiar with Ovis, and I was fortunate enough to meet with the president, with Brian Smith. He was nice enough to talk to me, and we presented to Ovis, I believe in January, We actually went to their meeting with one of the, Mrs. Couture's sons, and the developer and I went there and did speak with them about the plan and try to get some of their feedback. And
Did you use this concept when you spoke with them?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, we did. And this was after we had had the couple meetings with the planning department. I didn't want to take anything to them that was incomplete or not what we were really going to do. And we started this sometime last year, and so by the time we actually got to this plan, we were able to get on their January agenda.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. You'll have 9 minutes and 38 seconds in case you need to do some rebuttal. Okay, next speakers, these are against. We'll start with Dennis Green. Or you want Brian to go first? Okay. Brian Smith with the Ozona Village Improvement Society.
Correct. I'm Brian Smith, president of the Ozona Village Improvement Society, and we did meet with Jessica Coach, and based on what we saw, that was where the position was taken that always felt that we should be opposing and not changing the zoning for the area. And it's got to do with the fact that we also have a community overlay for Ozona, which was developed over 10 years ago now and adopted by the County Commission into the plan. And basically what we're looking at was, up to that point, the unincorporated area would have the same zoning in all the different areas of the unincorporated, the R1s, 2, 3s, and so on like that. And therefore, there was no way to have a special different treatment or recognition of character and so on like that in a community. So therefore, the overlays were developed with the idea of drilling in and talking about history and environment and things like that and community identity. A little bit more than just the categories only. So basically, that was put in place in again, I'm going to say in like 2010. Also, the overlay emphasizes the idea of that when you change the rules, like we're talking here, the zoning, it isn't just about zoning, there's also real estate practices and other things built upon that. As an example, we have R3 zoning, but you're very likely not going to be putting a house in Ozona with the very smallest lot in the county, just because due to property values and stuff like that. You can be developing it with probably bigger than a 6,000 foot lot. So there's a lot of things. It's not just about zoning, it's the practices and how things go together in the community. And again, we are okay with the community, the developer developing the property with the current zoning. The other is that we have a concern is that we don't want to sort of open the door and have an unstable environment for our community, because what could happen is you could make an argument for this zoning and the next, and basically what we try to do is hold things constant, because there's a lot of development pressure in Ozona with the land values and the rest. And if we were to change this, then you keep changing others, you keep using the same argument in other properties as well. You've got a very established community, and I might say it's much more of a concern about changing zoning in Ozona because we've got industrial, commercial, retail, office. We've got various kinds of residential. Over the years, it's all used based on the current zoning. It's all worked together pretty naturally. You probably wouldn't normally find that mixture of uses in other place that works. So basically, we feel like you don't want to open Pandora's box and change things. So again, we're okay with the development of the property. I might also point out there was the concern about, aside from change, there's the concern about the environment. And as we've talked about here, the wetland and the mangrove areas. And basically, if you've got such a fragile coastal area, you don't want to be increasing the opportunity for development in those areas. Also, there's the access to the property is on Ohio, which is in the middle of the property. That's currently a cul-de-sac. And that means that people are now used to a dead end, living on a dead-end street. And of course, this property, people would recognize that that'll open up, and this will be the entrance to the project. Oops. So I'll try to wrap it up. So anyway, therefore, they'll put more traffic on on those properties along there and people living. We basically want to keep that to a minimum. But I think the main point is we don't want to be opening Pandora's box and changing things. We want to basically keep it stable, as the community overlay talks about. There.
Question? Mr. Smith, so you're all examined and determined that you're basically willing to gamble on the fact that you don't believe that they would develop 25 single-family homes, that they would develop several larger homes.
It's a little bit bigger than that. My point is that wherever you have R3 and R4, could somebody just come in? I might say the plan says up to 5 units an acre. It doesn't guarantee somebody 5 units an acre. So if you have R3 zoning and you could only put in 17 units or 13 or 20, whatever it is, that's what you're stuck with. If you've got RM5, you're gold with the 5, and then you figure out how to work all the details, the small lots, and pushing things around to make it work. So there is a greater opportunity and value to the property with RM5 versus R3. So it isn't just a numbers game. We also are looking at the added impact. But again, you could use that same argument for other properties in the county, in the Ozona area. That's what we're concerned about.
But I just wanted to make sure that you said that you were not opposed to developing the property,
Yes.
but you're based on your projections and what you're thinking would actually happen versus what could maybe legally allowed to happen. That was where your comfort level was.
Well, but it's in community character to talk about going from a single-family house to townhouses is different. And I'm saying that puts a different use on that property. And so it's not the same, we're not talking about the same use on the property, but it changes zoning.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any further questions? Okay.
Yes, ma'am, real quick.
Yes, Commissioner Welch.
Thank you, Brian, good to see you again.
Yeah.
So the townhomes to the west and to the south, do those predate the Ozona overlay?
Yes, they do. As well as they're part of the fabric of the community. We're not saying townhouses are bad or any other thing, but we're looking at, that's there now, that's a given. But what we're talking about for the future, making changes, want to keep things stable. So if something's zoned single family, keep it single family, don't change the value on. If something, I might point out one example was, we do have an RM type project right across from the school, which is like this would be, but that was earlier an industrial site. So basically, we were compromised with what we did, so we were willing to go and get rid of the industrial site and put residential.
And that's the
in.
Ozona Village that was in the presentation? Okay, thank you.
Okay. Dennis? Good evening.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Dennis Green, and Vice President of Ovis. Been a licensed realtor for 50 years in Chicago and Florida. I'm a licensed general contractor in Florida for 34 years. My wife and I have a real estate office in Ozona for 12 years. So more than just a concerned citizen, I believe. The proposed zoning change actually allows for greater density. The footprint for a townhouse is greater diminished compared to the footprint for a marketable single-family home. The land area required for a marketable home would not allow for this number of units. And you can see the sites that they have the townhome sitting on. Probably you could end up putting a home on one of those and maybe catching a couple more someplace else. I therefore feel that this change is only be denied on that basis. This is a desire to erect more units, not on a desire to make quality addition to our community. We deserve a quality product which will produce a better bottom line for them and make our community better. It isn't how many sardines you can squeeze in the can. It's building a quality product here. That's all we want. And if you have any questions.
Okay. All right,
Thank you.
thank you. The last person who signed up to speak is Gregory Smith.
Good evening. I'm Gregory Smith. I live on Shore Drive in Ozona. I've been an Ozona resident for 10 years now, and I'm about as far away from this community as you could possibly get in Ozona. You might ask why I'm here. I'm here because I believe in the community of Ozona. I believe in the heritage, the history. And you look at 62 sites of historic significance in Ozona. You look at that we are listed or eligible for listing in the National Registry of Historic Places. All of this needs to be preserved. I think all of this is being threatened by these large multi-unit dwellings. I know that other sites, they showed pictures of other sites, the Ozona Village, all those kind of things. I'd consider them an eyesore. I'm very sad that I was not able to oppose those whenever they went through. Whenever the presentation was made to Ozona by the lawyer and her family, there was huge opposition, and I think you can see that from the petitions that went around. Every single person at that meeting was opposed to this, and these are the people that live there. And I know the family grew up there, but no one lives there right now, and you don't understand Ozona right now if you're not living in Ozona right now. And Dave, I appreciate that you went out there and took a look at the area. I'd encourage you all to come out. Ozona's a wonderful place. And I think that you're absolutely right, that right now with single-family homes, you could probably put 4 or 5 there. 26 is just not going to happen. That's not even remotely feasible. So we are talking about a major change. From 4 to 5 to 26, that's huge. And you talk about what Dr. Couture wanted, and I know the family brought this up, and so I'm going to quote you from the meeting. What he wanted was a park there. He didn't want 25 townhomes on it. That's what he wanted. And I think that I would appreciate and ask for your help for what we need in Ozona, and I think what the good doctor would have prescribed for Ozona, and that's to preserve the heritage, the community, and the vibe of this community by opposing this variance change. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, any questions? Okay, thank you very much. That, like I mentioned, that's all the cards that I have. Does anybody else from the public wish to speak for or against before I ask Jessica to come up and close? Okay.
I won't take up too much of your time. I just want to see if you had any questions based on anything that you just heard that I can maybe answer for you. If not, then thank you
Okay.
very much.
All right, thank you. Okay, commissioners
Can I ask a couple more
Yes.
questions of staff?
or staff?
Yeah.
Yes. Michael?
First of all, I think a couple of the comments that were made by a realtor / contractor, and somebody that lives in the area is what I consider expert testimony relating to marketable property. If it was a single-family home, what it would actually yield on that property. I'm not sure I agree with the gentleman who said 4 to 5 houses, but certainly more than likely. And again, I don't have any way to know that. Except when we ask for a zoning change from R3 to R, what is it, R4, R5, yeah, R5, excuse me, that's a significant piece with regards to the overlay, that we don't allow more than what would have otherwise been allowed on the R3. In my mind, that's what the overlay says, the density, not what's allowed by zoning, but by what could actually be built on there. That's really what this is, to me, is important to consider. So, to me, that's an issue. And so, again, you made the comment also that they're allowed 5 units per acre on that site. If that site was in the middle of the county with R3, is that 5 units per acre as well?
If it's RL, it's the land use. of
Okay, with the
RL
land
which
use.
allows the
So it
5
really
units.
doesn't matter that it's that close to the water, what the density.
The zoning is what controls the use on the property
Right.
and sets the lot size, minimum lot sizes, setbacks. And in my professional opinion of running the numbers on this site, I come up with the property is 222,156 square feet of upland area in size. If you divided that by 6,000 square foot minimum lot size of R3, that comes up with 37, which is above what's allowed to be built. That, if you took 26, the max units encompasses 156,000 square feet of lot size, which leaves a little over 66,000 square feet for infrastructure, open space, et cetera.
But you've
So
designed.
my professional opinion is, I believe that they could make 26 single-family detached houses work on this property.
Well, the fact that they can only do 26 townhome properties on that leads me to question that evaluation. Because I think that if they could do the 26 houses on that property, they probably would have done the 26 houses on that property.
Well,
My
they have
se-
significant more open space with the
Yeah.
townhouses, and I believe townhouses do usually, they can cluster
Right.
and to allow more open space on a property, where the single-family houses would be spread out more.
Okay, and, but again, I'm getting to, I'm still a little bit confused on what you allow to be built that close to the water in a high hazard that's no different than if it was inland. So we've never considered that adjustment. And that's something, if we haven't, we need to think about that. Because
They're capped at 5 units an acre, and that's what the county has in their comp plan, which we allow anything in the coastal high hazard area. If they were to have come in and say, we want to change the land use to 10 units an acre, our comp plan says no, we won't allow it. So they're at their maximum in the coastal high hazard area. Anybody
Understand what
unincorporated
you're saying,
is,
but
so.
there's no difference in that piece of property sitting there than if it was in the middle of the county. That's what I was asking. So there's nothing deterring people from building the same density there as they would be in the middle of the county.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes, they do have
So-
the wetlands to contend with, and that's another thing. There's
Yeah.
buffers off of it, and they have to provide stormwater, and so
I
there's
understand.
other issues
Yeah.
on it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Long?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Michael, I noticed in the recommendation from staff, the vote was 4-2. Do you know who the 2 people were that voted against it?
From the LPA, it was, remember the staff members. If I have it in the report.
Glenn Bailey, zoning manager. The one of them was the alternate Valerie Hibbard, and the other one was, I can't recall his name. He's the realtor, commercial realtor in Eastlake. I can't remember his name. Sorry, but it was 4-2. There was one person out, and the alternate was there.
Thank you.
Commissioner Welch?
Thank you. I had the same question on practical versus allowed density that Commissioner Eggers had. I'm just looking at the diagram. I know this isn't the final concept.
Correct.
But again, you're saying the difference between that and single-family homes is that there'd be much less green space, but you could still get the 26 units under the current land use and zoning.
Based on the size of the property and the lot size, that it could meet 60 by 100 foot lots on each side with a 50-foot right-of-way in the middle coming in. They could potentially get up to the 26. I haven't drawn that out. I haven't seen it drawn out. Of course, wetlands and having to put in stormwater.
But in your
Possibly
professional opinion,
could
it's a lot
impact
more
it.
than 5 or 6.
Correct, yes,
It's half a dozen up to
yes,
18, 20, 26 under the current land use and zoning.
that's correct, yes.
Thank you.
Just looking at the roster, I think it was Paul Weichel. Does that sound familiar, Glenn? Barb Schultz. Who?
Ronald
Ron
Schultz.
Okay, thank you. Paul Weichel's commercial too.
Okay, any other further questions? Yes, Commissioner Welch?
So are you free to say, because again, I asked this in the briefing, what the rationale for the 2 LPA members that voted against this was? What was their reasoning? It wasn't in the LPA report.
I know, I looked for that too.
I believe they were not supportive of the change. As for their specific reason,
They didn't
They
go
didn't
into
provide it.
detail? Okay.
Anyone else? Okay, thank you.
thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, County Commissioners. Anybody have any thoughts? I think it's a tough one.
That it is. I'll start it. Madam Chair. This is a difficult one for me because I've kind of changed my opinion twice up here. And I was here when we went through the Ovis community overlay and the fact that the community wanted to preserve certain aspects of what makes Ovis special. And so, given the testimony today from Brian and from Ovis and all the petition and everything else we had against it, I highly respect what we went through to create that overlay and the fact that they don't want this changed. On the other hand, there can be development now with single-family homes that is gonna change that area regardless. So that's what I'm wrestling with right now between those two, because that area is going to change one way or another. And, you know, the incremental difference between this proposal, which has a lot of positive benefits in my view, versus what could happen with the current land use and zoning, could be a pretty small difference. So I hope that helped clear everybody up and move you along. It's a
thanks.
difficult one for me. I
I know,
respect
I'm kind of wrestling with
the
the same.
proposal, but also what Ovis is saying as well. Can I ask one other question that was on my mind?
Sure.
So I
What
wanted to
staff or who's
For
the-
Jewel, actually. You know, so what do we need to base this on? I mean, is there a right for this land use change?
Well, what you're looking at when you're looking at zoning changes, which keep in
Sorry.
mind, this is just a zoning change.
Thank you.
This is not a land use change, is you should be looking at whether the proposed change is consistent with the county's comprehensive plan. And you'll see staff's recommendation in that regard in the LPA report as it's set forth in there. And I'm sure, you know, staff could speak to this, whether they had a discussion, a more lengthy discussion over that at the LPA meeting or not. But it is here before you in your record, the recommendation as to consistency with your comprehensive plan. And then, you know, other than that, you're going to be looking at, and I'm going to throw out the legal terms for you here, the competent and substantial evidence that's in the record before you here at this public hearing, which would include the staff reports that you've seen, the testimony from your staff, the testimony from other citizens that have spoken. This is no surprise to you all, but there is a distinction between lay testimony and expert testimony. And, you know, you do have some people here that spoke from the community that do have some background. But those are the things that you're looking at, and your comp plan, and if you look at the LPA report, and Mr. Schoderbach spoke to this, and some others, that you're looking at compatibility with the neighborhood. And of course, you're used to hearing that you're looking at impacts on infrastructure. Now, getting back to what the applicant's representative spoke about tonight is you're really not going to have impacts to the infrastructure here, because the way you should be looking at this property is what is allowed to be developed. So there are only 2 houses there now, but they have, as again your staff stated, the right to build up to 26. So that really is almost a wash in this case, because admittedly there are only 2 existing houses, but 26 that are allowed to be built there. So impacts to infrastructure, and and again, the applicant brought forward some data that would suggest that practical impacts based on townhouses as to houses from the traffic would actually be better with the townhouses. But again, those are the types of things you're looking at: consistency with your comprehensive plan, compatibility with the neighborhood. Normally you'd be looking at infrastructure, but that's not as much of a case here because of the 26 units to 26 units.
Okay. Thank you, Jewel.
Commissioner Gerard, then Commissioner
I just had
Ed.
one question. So building in the coastal high hazard area, they have to start 25 feet above sea level, right?
Not that high.
11. No? How
10
high?
or 11. Thank you. But it has to be somewhat.
There would be
has
some
to
elevation.
It'll be elevated in some
So-
manner.
I mean, actually, they're gonna end up looking like townhouses anyway, but by the time single-family homes are gonna be equivalent to at least 2 stories, probably. Or 3.
The homes in this area are either going to be built on fill or built on stilts.
Right. And the fill is kind of iffy.
Where they have a
'cause-
breakaway wall on the bottom.
Right, correct.
Yeah, yeah. But you're still gonna have that space at the bottom that's, so townhomes are gonna be even
Yeah.
higher.
Commissioner Akers?
Well, no, my biggest question is the number of properties and the impacts that it's gonna be to the area, so that if you could build 26 homes on there and you can build 26 townhomes on there, I think it's pretty, I'm not saying up to, I'm talking about actually with design, marketable, where they can maximize the property values. If you had the same number, you probably have some of the numbers that they talked about, those traffic count impacts and whatever. My comment was that, yeah, you could build, like he said, 37 properties on there. If they could do that, there would be a lot more than 26 being proposed. So I'm just saying that I have a concern about the spirit of what we're trying to do here is maintain the number of houses that would normally be built with the zoning that they have. If we gave them no tonight, and they went back to figure out how many properties they could build on there, it would come to a number, whatever that is, and keeping in mind the historic ownership and what they wanted to do with that property, which means probably wouldn't have maximized it, but whatever they would have built, that's what they should be allowed to build, and not more than that. And I'm concerned that by doing this move, we're allowing them more than they would otherwise been able to do. And you know, the expert testimony from the audience and maybe they had different opinions on that, but neither one of them have done site plan work for this property.
But
So
we're
we
not
don't,
doing
we don't
site
really
plan,
know. Right,
right?
I get it, yeah. So we don't really know. All we know is that they've done a site plan for the townhomes and it's come up to 26. And that's what we do know. So I'm a little bit concerned about that. Also concerned about the areas flooding and you know, that issue and all of the things that we've got going on. But hopefully you'll take care of that during our site plan process, so that you're comfortable.
I have Commissioner Gerard's answer for the base flood elevation on this property is 12. So their finished floor would have to start at 1 foot above that is 13. No matter whatever type of housing gets built on that would have to start at 13 and go up from there.
So,
for the
Madam
floor.
Chair,
That's
if
different.
we were to approve this evening, at some place along the line, does it come back to us again?
No. Because if it was approved and they moved ahead, the site planning would come back to our county departments, but it would not come back to us.
Can I ask one more question? It kind of related, that was a good question that you asked about, you'd have to put enough fill in there to bring it up to 13 feet above.
It's already at 12.
It may not be filled.
What is it at now?
Stilts.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. What is it at now?
I'm not sure what the elevations are on the property.
We got it.
Oh, you have it.
Elevations are between 4 and 9 feet, so we'd have to put fill up between that 4 to 13 feet. And to get back to one of your points, we don't know what, 26 is the maximum they could potentially build there, period. They can't ask for anything more. The land use cuts them to that. They can't ask for 37, even though they could get 37 units on there. Potentially, based on the 6,000 square foot lots, they just can't do that because the land use prevents that. They can't even ask for it.
Gotcha.
That's the 5 units per acre. So this is their maximum. Whatever zone district they have on there, it doesn't matter. It's 26 units. They could go for a high rise. It's 26 units, or they, you know, that's it. And that's our protection based on the coastal high hazard area. We don't want any more density in there. It's already there. Or if they want to come in there and change the residential medium, which would allow 15 units per acre, they can't ask for it. This is it, 26. So if they came in with single-family homes, they wouldn't necessarily be 6,000 square feet. They would fit them all in there in some way. They'd be larger than 6,000 square feet in order to fit in all that property. So they, I don't know what they would be, 8,000, 10,000. But they would utilize all of it, and you would have.
But your opinion is they could actually get the 26
I don't.
houses on
I
there.
can't say that for sure, but I'm saying they can't ask for anything more than that. Right. So no matter what type of residential unit it is, it's capped.
So you bring up a good point about the question that you asked about the amount of fill that's gonna have to be brought in there to bring the property up. Do we have the, you know, those drainage impacts have to again stay on the property?
Right.
The heights of those houses, are you, you know, because I guess in the townhome concept, the first floor, you're not, are they shown, they're showing them as garages with homes
They
of.
could have garage, yes, you could do that. You could put garages, and then the living area has to start at least 13 feet above sea level.
Right.
You're already at 4 to 9, so that much difference. If
Okay.
they went in with fill and wanted not have the still home concept.
Yeah.
But
They
would have
haven't
to
really introduced that
compensate
yet,
for
what
it.
they're doing.
That's
is-
all done, obviously, at the
Yeah,
site
yeah,
plan
yeah.
level, and
Okay.
so we're not sure, but, yeah, I can't say if they can get 26 single-family homes there, because there's wetland buffer areas and
Yeah,
things
there's
like
that-
that. You gotta
there's
put stormwater somewhere. But if it was a perfect rectangle out in the middle of a dry pasture, 37 could be possible. If The land use allowed it, but because where it is in the coastal hazard area, it will not, and they cannot ask for it. It causes
Thank you for
hurricane
that clar-
evacuation issues and all that kind of
Thank
stuff.
you for that clarification to my statements. Appreciate that.
You're welcome. Anything else I can?
Question, Madam Chair.
Commissioner Welch?
So Ohio Avenue, that's gonna be the main entryway regardless of whether it's townhomes or single
Because
family?
it's got that wetland on the southern
Right.
boundary of the property, you
So
can't
y'all-
really cross that.
Are any improvements needed on Ohio, or is that,
They would have to put in sidewalks if they're not there, I'm not sure. That's all from a site plan perspective, but they would have to, would they have to improve the road? I'm not sure. We didn't get into that detail, but that would be addressed during site plan.
the LPA didn't look at that?
No,
Okay.
that's not really a purview of a zoning change, unless you do some type of development
So at what
agreement.
point do we as a county look at, Ohio bearing all that traffic?
We would look
Regardless
at
of
it
which way we go?
during the site plan review process, based on our land development code.
And would that extend out to, is 8th Street where the traffic would come in from to Ohio?
Right.
So would you,
I would it extend to 8th Street? I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I can't answer that.
because the
I'm not sure.
problem could extend to 8th Street.
Right. But that's really the only practical way to enter the property, regardless of whatever the zoning is. If there's single-family
That's the
homes,
only
that's the
way
way
in.
they'll come as well.
Okay. All righty.
Anyone else? Yes, Commissioner Peters?
So I'm listening to all the conversations, and the property across the street is townhouses, and underneath is garages, based on the pictures, so it's already at that same height. On the other side of the street are duplexes, and they're already at that same height, so there's no difference in what's next door. So I think my concern and understanding the neighborhood, if it was all single-family homes around the entire property, then this would be a change. But the adjacent properties are all multifamily homes already, and they're all already at the height that these homes would be. And, we have all these people wanting green space. And earlier today, lots of people want their green space. And this allows for maximized green space, that I'm actually surprised that the community isn't more focused on the amount of green space they get this way, because if they go to single-family homes, regardless of the wetlands, you're still going to lose significant amount of green space to put those homes on there. So there'd be a lot more asphalt with driveways, a lot more other stuff. I'm actually surprised, but the amount of green space in there, to me, makes this a much more desirable plan for the neighboring community, because they're not losing the woods like they would if homes are going to be separated and not attached. A lot more of the trees are going to be gone, a lot more of the green space is going to be gone. So based on the rest of the community that is begging for us not to lose any green space, I'm actually surprised seeing that the units don't change. Units are awash. That just surprises me. So it's just my comments and observations.
Yeah, I think the only comment that I would say to that, and I agree with your observations, is how much you believe that the number of units would be the same if we did single family. So if you believe that you're gonna get 26,
Right.
then it just makes total sense. If you're only gonna get 17 or 18, based on the configuration of the property then it's a different issue. So that's the only, but you're right, to your point on the other things. If it's the same, it's the same.
Yeah.
And it'd be a lot better plan, so. And we have different people with different feelings about that, so. About how many houses could actually be built down there.
Okay, is anybody prepared to make a motion?
Well, if nobody's gonna do it, I'll say I recommend denial.
Second.
Second, okay. Motion by Commissioner Eggers for denial, a second by Commissioner, it's been a long day,
Justice.
Justice. And we'll go ahead and open up the voting cards.
So a yes means denial.
Okay, it's a 6-1 vote of denying the application. I thank everybody for being here this evening. Thank you for everyone's expert testimony. And with that, is there anything else to come before us this evening? Okay, we are adjourned.